forgot my watch. Lord Jesus. Is it time to go yet? Lord. Why am I here? This woman is trying me. You're absolutely right. You know, Doc, I hate it here. What would I do without you, Doc? You are worth every penny of my copay. Peace, peace, people. My name is Kymani Jade, Kymani Jade for short, and you've tuned into More Lyrical. Today, I'm talking about the hardest part of therapy. One of the most challenging things about going to therapy is facing hard truths about yourself. The great philosopher Snoopy once said, "Did you ever think that you could be wrong?" Facing hard truths about yourself looks like pointing the finger at yourself. What is it that you believe that you have built up over years to protect yourself emotionally? What are some of those patterns and behaviors that you may not even recognize exist that are disrupting your life? Oftentimes, subconsciously, we reject anything that may disrupt our meaning of life, what we hold to be true, what we believe about who we are. These defense mechanisms warp our thinking and oftentimes can lead to dysfunctional patterns of behavior. So you might be telling a story, right? And you don't want to be wrong. You can't ever be wrong. So you omit details that may incriminate you because you ain't out here trying to look bad, right? So you lie to yourself and you lie to others. But one thing is true, forget the stigma. There's no shame in helping yourself. The best advice I ever received at work was from a supervisor who suggested I got comfortable asking questions. What I took from that is I gotta question what I think I know, and most importantly, have the courage to be wrong. Oftentimes, with cognitive distortions, the dialogue begins internally. So what is that dialogue telling you about yourself, about others, about situations? Are you willing to abandon what you think you know to begin a new conversation? Or is it more important for you to prove yourself right? Nobody wants to be wrong or the problem. Ain't nobody out here trying to be problematic on purpose. Well, not all of us. And when you're sitting in your therapist's seat, chair, sofa, or your own, you really start to break down those feelings that you experience, or rather avoid, and recognize that it's not always about others. It's not about how she behaves or how she acts or what he doesn't do or what he does too much. Many times, the issue is you. And that can be difficult to sit with. Sitting with discomfort is another challenge of going to therapy. I'm good on deflecting with humor, and I am very likely to disassociate to get through uncomfortable situations. Ain't nobody out here trying to recall repressed memories, but that's the work, overcoming painful emotions. But how do you begin to face and confront those emotions without the language to name them? You may be afraid to be misunderstood or unable to explain yourself effectively. A lot of us, when we want to avoid shame, become defensive. And if a painful topic is brought up, we're changing the subject. Therapy helps us begin having those difficult conversations and asking ourselves tough questions. Keyword, ourselves. When you have the opportunity, whether by a friend in therapy or a humbling experience turns into a humiliating one, and you have to look at what exactly it is that you have been denying, avoiding, or rejecting completely, baby, that is an opportunity to heal. But before we can get to a place of healing, you gotta find a therapist or a psychologist or a social worker or a counselor or even a life coach. And that process can be tedious. It's not always easy to find a therapist that you can connect with, and it may be even more difficult to find a therapist in your network or one you can afford who is out of network entirely. And then a lot of therapists who are also culturally competent may have an overwhelming number of clients already, and so you find yourself having to be waitlisted for weeks or months just to connect with the provider. But I'm here to tell you, when you do find the right person, it is life-changing. And possibly the most difficult part about therapy is breaking up with your therapist. Your therapist may find that you've come to the end of your rope and it's time for you to fly off. Maybe you've met all of the objectives with your therapist in session. Your therapist may think it's time for you to graduate. They may recommend another provider for you, or it may be up to you to decide if therapy is something you want to continue with. I say that's the best case scenario. Sometimes you come to a point in therapy and realize this therapist, this ain't it. Sometimes it's just the wrong fit, and we have to know when to move on. You may be facing judgment from your therapist. You may have just outgrown them entirely. The issues that you were hoping to resolve are no longer pertinent or as relevant to you. And remember, it's a relationship. So your therapist is also getting to know you and learning how to relate with you. You're both coming in with different histories and values and perspectives, and that can either be a benefit or it can be at your detriment. You don't really want to feel judged by your therapist. Of course, we're all making judgments about each other all of the time. However, if there's no connection, or you feel like your therapist just doesn't get you, or their advice doesn't seem to get you where you need to be, and maybe they're not giving you any advice at all. If you find your therapist is disengaged during the session or constantly checking their watch, it might be time to move on. Each therapist is bringing a unique style and approach to the therapeutic process. Unfortunately, you might have to kiss a lot of frogs before you find your therapist charming. Some options to individual therapy are group therapy sessions, support groups, which are not the same, but both offer a communal healing process. Another strenuous aspect of therapy is that the co-pays are typically more expensive than the co-pays for general health, and that is unnecessary. While I respect the specialty of psychiatrists and clinical psychologists and so forth, it's all a matter of health. Let's ensure that more people have equitable access to healthcare by equalizing the playing field. Out-of-network costs, especially if you're just paying out of pocket entirely, can hit you like a bag of bricks. One option is to check for places that offer services on a pay scale, look for discounts, and check out university clinics. Therapy isn't always easy, but I go because my friends aren't therapists, and I've grown incredibly in my sessions. I have my own bad habits that I want to let go of, and therapy helps me recognize and realize that they even exist, and also how to change those behavior patterns so that I can be the best me that I want to be. It's also nice having a neutral person and voice to talk with outside of your friendship circles. Most of all, being able to process old traumas that are still showing up in my relationships today has been incredibly helpful. So while therapy can be challenging, and sometimes I cry, and sometimes I laugh, and sometimes I ask, why am I still here? I keep going because I deserve it. What about you? In the comments, let me know what are the most difficult aspects of therapy for you, and I will catch you in the next video.